And we are live. This is the 100 Club. Welcome. My name is Tom, and I'm joined once again by Rich. How you doing, Rich?
I'm doing well, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. We are at the halfway stage of the 100 in 2022, and we thought we'd do a little live stream this evening. What's going on?
So we are currently watching the Invincibles trying to chase down 181 against the Trent Rockets, and not making the best fist of it at the minute. They're 43 for 2, so they need another 139 of 67 balls. So we'll be following that to the end of this one. So if you're watching that game, hopefully you can watch along with us while we talk about some of the other ongoing events in the tournament so far.
Yeah, I mean it's looking like a decent game. It could be if Billings, Curran, and the like start teeing off. They're 2 wickets down. Jason Roy, perhaps unsurprisingly, has fallen just a moment ago to Tabraiz Shamsi with a beautiful googly taking his leg stump. And the other under the spectrum, you've had the recent century maker that is Will Jacks depart as well. So yeah, all to do for the Oval Invincibles.
And Sam Billings unlikely to make much of an impact, given he's just been he's just gone bowled by Tabraiz Shamsi. Fantastic delivery, actually.
This is the hazard. I don't know if it's because you're in London or something and I'm out in the sticks, but you're about 30 seconds ahead of me. But that's fine. We'll do our best. Feel free to react quicker, as you will do inevitably. And between the wickets tumbling over at Nottingham, then we will have a look at the 100 so far. It is at pretty much the halfway point, not quite equal between the women's and the men's at the moment. But I think we can get a pretty good steer on what's going on in the tournament so far. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've had 4 games each for the men. I think this will be game 5 for the Rockets and the Invincibles tonight, out of a total of 8 in the group stages. Now, of course, the women will only play 6 this year. That's because their tournament was truncated by the Commonwealth Games. But I think most sides have played a couple of games now in the women's tournament. We'll look into that a little bit later. So we're starting to get a sense for how that might shake out as well. So it's been interesting games across both. My overall impression so far, Tom, is it's been decent without really sort of being electrifying. How about you?
Yeah, a bit of a mixed bag. I think overall, the quality is probably a bit higher than last year, but then the novelty factor is a bit lower. So maybe sort of balancing out how my emotions have felt through the games. But genuinely, there has been some awesome moments, and not least, I loved going down to Old Trafford last Saturday, where I saw a couple of good games there with Trent Rockets actually beating the home team, the Manchester Originals, twice. I.e. the women's and the men's games, and there were some great moments in that. Maybe we'll get into that in a bit. But before we go too much further, I should just say, if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are the 100 Club. We talk about the 100 and cricket generally. If you like what we do, then hit subscribe. Check out our channel generally. There's loads of preview videos, bits of news, etc. Some interviews from players that we can pick up and that, and hit the like button as well. Let other people know we're out here. The YouTube algorithm would sort that out. And most importantly tonight, since we are live, if you've got any questions or any thoughts about the tournament as a whole, stick them down in the comments section below, and we'd love to have a chat about it and then hear what you think. So, Rich, should we have a look at a table, see where we're at with that?
Yeah, let's see the lie of the land, as it were.
Okay, let's start with the men's table as it stands right now. This is straight off the hundreds website there, and there's a name that you and I probably didn't expect right at the top there in the London Spirit. What's going on at Lord's?
Who knows what's going on at Lord's? Strange things are occurring. Yes, of course, London Spirit, last year's whipping boys, find themselves top of the pile. Well, what's happened? Glenn Maxwell's turned up for a start, as has Kieran Pollard. And the middle order looks better. They batted 3 times first and then chased in the fourth game, and have managed to defend scores each time by putting sort of reasonable totals up. And I think that middle order has helped them do it. And the bowling's been good too. I mean, they have a real Hampshire theme in the bowling department with Mason Crane, Chris Wood, Nathan Ellis, and of course Liam Dawson as well. So it's sort of they've taken that form that saw Hampshire win the Vitality Blast into this competition, and now it's been going very well for them. And even Owen Morgan's got a few runs.
Well, I was going to say you're not even mentioning probably the factor that most people would like to sort of point at in the London Spirit's form this year, which is Owen Morgan, captaincy, runs, all of that, and doing pretty well. The other one I'd pick out from what you said there is Nathan Ellis, who I think has been a bit of a revelation with the ball. Beautiful slower delivery, a lot of back of the hand stuff, sort of dropping it off 15 miles an hour from his quickest deliveries. It's made quite a difference. And the game that sort of summed it up for me was perhaps obviously in retrospect was the game that they played at the Aegeus Bowl against the Southern Brave men, clearly last year's champions. They turned up with a Hampshire bowling attack and probably did a number on them. It's not, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised.
No, I think it's one of those things, isn't it, where it's not so much about the big names, but you pick the players who are in form, and obviously players who are used to playing together as well. And obviously, in terms of bowling, spin tandem, Mason Crane and Liam Dawson bowl very well together, and they've carried that form through. There's been some interesting captaincy as well. Morgan using the spinners heavily in the first half, bowling a few 10 sets as well, keeping his seamers back. He's been able to do that, of course, because he's got runs on the board, and he's been able to put that pressure on. Having said that, they nearly messed it up in that first game against the Oval Invincibles, where they, having posted 170, I think they had the Invincibles 12 for 4 or something, and still nearly lost the game. So they have a self-destructive streak in them still, I would say. And of course, now they've lost Glenn Maxwell, who's gone back to international duty.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. Shari Manju drops in with a comment, and if you are just joining us for the first time, do throw a comment in. We'd love to hear what you think, which is about whether this 100 is having more one-sided games. I think it's possible that we are seeing a few more one-sided games. There's been about 3 or 4 that I can remember sort of going down to the last 1 or 2 balls out of the games that we've seen so far. So if London Spirit, as we're talking about them, are 4 out of 4 right now, and Glenn Maxwell's departing, it means that it's going to be a bit closer in the London Spirit games, or generally, as we see some of the players come out of the game now?
Yeah, I mean, there's only been 16 games, right? So it could be just a bit of a statistical quirk that the games haven't been quite as close, or don't seem as they were as close. Another reason could be that, as teams get better with the format, they know a little bit better about how to go about, specifically run chases, how to time it, how to pace it. So we've seen that a couple of times. The games that looked like they might be pretty close have ended up being fairly easy wins, sort of like when Superchargers beat the Originals. That looked like that was bubbling up to a good finish, but in the end they won with 6 balls to spare.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could as things get tighter down the line, we might see a few closer finishes. But
I remain unconvinced that tonight's game is going to be a close finish. Currently, I've got it that Oval Invincibles still need 130 runs with 55 balls left. They're going to need to start going. Jordan Cox and Sam Curran currently holding the bat, but you clearly are a little ahead of me there, Rich. So do shout out if you see something going on. Otherwise, let's have another look at that table again for the men. Yeah. Below the London Spirit, are clearly flawless so far with 4 wins from 4. We've then got 3 teams who are right up there, including the 2 teams that are playing tonight: Oval Invincibles, Birmingham Phoenix, Trent Rockets, all with 3 wins each, pending tonight's result. Do we think that it's essentially 3 teams from 4 who are going to make it through to the eliminators in the final?
Well, I wouldn't say that yet. I think the 3 teams who are still on 2 points, the Originals, the Superchargers, and the Brave, all have an opportunity to get themselves back into it. It's and sneak into that 3rd eliminator spot. I think 8 points might get you in. 10 points probably will. So with 4 games to play, if any 3 of those win their remainder, then they will get in. Don't forget, Southern Brave started pretty slowly last year as well. Yeah, and then sort of charged at the end, got themselves into the eliminator, and obviously went on to win the tournament. So, no, I think everybody except, unfortunately, Tom, I think your Welsh Fire might not be their year, but I think everybody else is still has something to play for. Yeah,
maybe. I'm potentially tempted to add into the mix of teams that might be out of it now those Southern Brave. I mean, the Welsh Fire, I'm afraid, haven't looked good at all. Southern Brave are having some issues, and not least, the Shai Manju again asking the question here: what's gone wrong for them? I think they're having problems with their bowling lineup, which was so instrumental for them last year. They've lost Timal Mills for the tournament now with a foot injury. Chris Jordan's now been ruled out for the rest of the tournament with, I think it's a broken finger, or he tried to stop a Kyron Pollard smack. So they've now lost both of them. We might expect a fast bowling replacement to be announced before tomorrow's game, I think, against the Originals. But at the moment, they can't really seem to get a handle on that bowling.
Yeah, it's injuries is the key here, isn't it? And
obviously Jofra as well. Yeah,
Don't forget Jofra, nominally a member of the Southern Brave, as Sam Curran deposits one into. Oh no, it's just a 4. So Jofra out. Tim R. Mills, who has always been a touch injury prone throughout his career. That's one of the reasons why he decided to focus on short format cricket, was because his body just wouldn't handle the longer form. Obviously, he had to leave the T20 World Cup early last year due to injury. And Chris Jordan, who's actually been pretty good at keeping himself fit and on the park, misses out as well. So I think any side who loses their sort of 2 main bowlers is going to struggle a little bit. So I think that's probably the reason why we're not seeing much of them. Although I would say, again, it did take them a few games last year to sort of discover their winning formula. So let's not write them off just yet.
Yeah, well, I'm writing them off. There you go. I've said it. But it depends on what they can do. But it does beg the question of, well, if Jordan is having problems to Mal Mills, we have the T20 World Cup coming up in October. England's fast bowling options also being affected. We know with Sak Mahmood. We know Richard Gleeson's had a niggle that's meant he hasn't played any of the first 4 games of the Manchester Originals. So again, we've got the question of, which of the young England fast bowlers have impressed us from the tournament? But linked to that, I think, we'd say which of them are going to come forward and stick their hand up for the World Cup if the injuries are going to be an issue. And to give us a hand with that, let's have a look at who's been taking the wickets in the tournament so far. Jordan Thompson, top of the list with 9, maybe not out and out pace, but do you think he's giving himself a shout?
Oh, he has to be. And I think that it doesn't hurt that he's got, Owen Morgan captaining him there at the London Spirit. Obviously, not involved in the team anymore, but obviously we'll have, by championing his cause, that obviously goes a long way in the corridors of power. I think Thompson adds a lot as well because he's sort of fantastic in the field, but also a pretty useful lower order hitter as well. Yeah, and I think he didn't get an awful lot of opportunity last time round at the Superchargers. He's come down to London and he's sort of really taken on that mantle of being the main man, bowling death over the death sets, as we're taking to call it. Player who's not on the wicket list there, but has impressed me massively is Henry Brooks.
For the Birmingham Phoenix.
Bowler at the Phoenix, yes. He was drafted last year but missed out due to injury, and he's come in this time. He, took a 5 the other day, very impressive. But good pace, good slower balls. He's fulfilling the role sort of that Adam Milne played for the Phoenix last year, and he's been very impressive.
Yeah, he was only just off that list there with 5 wickets, the 5 that you mentioned there. But as you say, doing good things. I don't think it's ready for England yet, but he can't be too far away. The other name that you might have seen on the list there, which was perhaps a little bit surprising, Tom Helm. I don't, again, think he's in the mix for the England setup, but he has been bowling very well. You never know. And one other one, an honourable mention, is Benny Howell, who's been doing some fabulous things. He's an experienced campaigner rather than a young fast bowler. But yeah, really doing some good stuff there. One thing I'd say about the bowling overall, though, from the tournament in the men's side, is that I'm not convinced that anyone has pulled up trees, to use the old cliche, has really taken the tournament by the scruff of its neck. I thought before the tournament, we might see, again, a very spin-heavy, spin-dominated set of stats, if you like, for bowling. But apart from Sunil Narayan and a little bit of Mason Crane, there's nothing really suggesting that's happening.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back one sec to the comment you made around Benny Howell. Because he has been phenomenal. Not necessarily there in the wickets column, but in terms of his economy rate. And I think I saw a stat showing that he's head and shoulders above the rest in terms of his boundary percentage. And I think Benny Howell's one of these interesting ones. And it goes back a little bit to sort of Tim R. Mills getting back in the England squad last year. Benny Howell has been around the circuit for a long time, and it has a very highly regarded reputation as a T20 player domestically. But I think there's often been this sort of sense where, when he's not particularly express pace, it's all a bit sort of licorice all sorts, mixes it up. It's all about disguise, etc. Does it necessarily translate to the higher level? Could he do it against the better players in the world? Is he is he just sort of doing well in the blast? And then he comes up a level. He's in the 100. He's facing a better quality player or more concentrated talent in batting lineups, and he's still doing it. So I guess my question there is, why not, knock on the door of the England squad? If you're one of the best bowlers in the 100, then that should be your ticket into the England squad.
I like the logic, Rich. I like the logic, but I will be surprised if he does make it. But why not is the question. You're right to ask it.
Well, Matthew Mott, who coached in the 100 last year, he was the Welsh Fire women coach. He's now been promoted up to the England white ball coaching job. He has said he is watching the 100 to see who performs, who doesn't perform. As Tom Moores drops down a horrible catch. Oh gosh, that is horrific.
They're 105 required from 43. I've got it at the moment.
Luckily, I don't think it's going to cost them. But no, that is for a wicketkeeper. That is one of the worst drops you're ever likely to see.
Sam Curran holding the torch here.
Yeah, and amazingly because he's got helmet cam as well, you see it go up, and I've watched that all the way into the gloves, so I'm not sure he's missed that, and he's made up for it with a brilliant stumping the next ball. So well done, Tom Moores.
Job done. Well, I've just seen the catch. That's how far behind I am. Okay, let's flick it back to the batting and sticking with the men's game though. Again, a question here. Jason Roy, we've seen him out of form again, not hit a huge number this evening. I think it's single figures again. Look, English top order batting is everyone's favourite topic in cricket. Joy asks, who's going to replace him in the England squad? Let's pull those stats up again for who's doing well, and give me some names, Rich.
Well, I think it comes down to it's that competition for the second opener spot. Assuming that Butler will open in the T20 World Cup, Bairstow will probably play, even though he's opted out of the 100, and will probably bat 3. So there's that spot up for grabs at 2. At the moment, Jason Roy is the incumbent, but he's under pressure, as the question says, from Will Jacks, Phil Salt, and of course Will Smead, who's announced himself with that fabulous 100 the other night. I think
not done a lot else though. He's scored.
No, he's not done a lot else. So I think Phil Salt is sort of the next guy in line. He's played a little bit for England this summer already. So I think he's probably the one who's going to get the chance. But I think it depends on how much pressure Will Jacks puts on him in the tournament. I think Will Jacks needs to do a little bit more. I mean, he's got the 100, but I think he needs to back that up with sort of multiple match-winning innings. To really put pressure on.
If you look at the averages, I think before tonight's taken into account, he's still averaging over 90 or 80 in the tournament.
Yeah.
So doing all right. Let's not be too hard on the kid. David Milan though, let's spend a minute on David Milan if we can. Often doubted, rarely doubtful is how I'd say it. Hitting again, another decent knock today. He's got to be a shoo-in, right, for the World Cup.
Yeah, he's in the squad. He's in the squad, absolutely. The 2 innings he's had, I think it was an 88 and a 98. I mean, the 98 in particular was just incredible because it was almost a one-day inning, 2020 innings in reverse, in that he sort of went out with like an absolute blaze of fire. I don't know what his 50 was off, but it wasn't off many. And then he sort of, as the sort of victory target neared in sight, he's just sort of slowed down. It's a bit like a sprinter in the heats, just sort of easing off in the last 10 yards to go through. Go on.
I mean, I'm going to give you the IPL this year was absolutely insistent on us trying to use the Basra technique for assessing a T20 batter, which was, if I remember correctly, batting average, strike rate, aggregate. Was what they were saying. So the batting average for David Milan in the 100 this year is currently 101.5. Okay, and his strike rate is currently. Do you want to guess?
It's close to 200, I think, isn't it?
It's 200.99, 201.
Does that include his innings this evening, Tom?
Yeah, I think no, not yet. That's over 4 innings. So if you add that up, he's got a Basra, if you like it, of 303, which I think would have. Even the most excitable IPL commentator absolutely purring. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. In the squad.
Get him in.
Then the question, but then I mean, we'll talk about it later in the year when we sort of preview the T20 World Cup, which I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah.
But and that's the question that comes up, isn't it? When you say that, okay, well, Johnny Bairstow is obviously one of the better white ball cricketers in England. He's sort of regular in the IPL and all that stuff, but he opted out of the tournament. He could have played 3 or 4 games.
Yeah.
He's decided not to. He's decided to concentrate on his test stuff. Does that mean his place is under threat and Milan comes and takes it over?
A question that might relate. Without any T20 match practice under Ben Stokes, how can he get into the T20 World Cup? I think Ben Stokes will right.
Because he's Ben Stokes, I think,
yeah.
more or less. I think it's a really valid question, though. And I would like to see in the long term, players, if you don't play in the 100, then you are almost ruling out yourself out for selection because somebody else will put their hand up and get in. And is Stokes the best option at the minute? I mean, Sam Curran is fantastic at the minute. As you say, somebody like Jordan Thompson, picking their hand up. And all cricket is, yes, there's an element of muscle memory to it, but it's also, you do need to have that kind of constant repetition playing in those pressure situations. And if Stokes hasn't played any T20 this summer, then can he be a shoe-in? And
if the tournament really wants to thrive for the long term, it has to, feed other forms, and surely the most important of those is the England team. There you go. Interesting next year, though, will be potentially the fact that the 100 is not going to clash with the Ashes through August 2023. Now, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, well, that's criminal. How can you move the Ashes to accommodate the 100?" Well, that's not quite true, of course. Actually, a lot of the reason why that isn't clashing is because Australia have absolutely committed to a one-day international series with South Africa through August next year, as essentially payback for them cancelling their tour last year at short notice due to COVID. So a little harsh on the 100, but what it will mean is that we see again, hopefully, some ability for the England stars and the 100 and their international commitments all to be a little bit more synchronized, because that will improve everything.
Yeah, I think people will see conspiracies everywhere, won't they? And I mean, it's already sort of a fairly divisive issue, the fact that we have a test match going on at the same time as the 100's going on, and where sort of the concentration should focus. I mean, the other reason there was conspiracies is there was that picture, wasn't there, they'd taken at the London Spirit game the other week, where one of the Ambanis was in town along with, I think it was the CEO of Google's was there as well.
Yeah.
And the speculation that if you can carve out a window in August, it's a time when India aren't otherwise playing. Could you do a sort of grand bargain with the IPL where you sort of freed up Indian players for the 100? And obviously, that's that would be, from my point of view, quite a mouth-watering prospect. I'd love to see that, but again, the sort of conspiracy theorists out there are sort of a bit more cynical about these things.
For the greater good, Rich. For the greater good, as they say. Let's have a quick look at the women's table. Clearly, they've only played a couple of games. So the women's table at the moment, again, a couple of quick starters in the Birmingham Phoenix, Southern Brave, Oval Invincibles. I don't think that's too shocking to us. We certainly felt that the Southern Brave had the strongest squad on paper, and they've been fairly terrifying in their early form. I think they'll be difficult to beat, right?
Yeah, just better than everybody else. That's the main challenge with the Southern Brave. Who's gonna stop them? That's the question there. Elise Perry's playing like she's got a point to prove. I mean, she was dropped from the T20 squad over strike rate, supposedly, and she's been batting incredibly quickly in the couple of innings she's had, including that match-winning innings in the first game. We've got a comment there about sort of the Invincibles dropping Dani van Niekerk without no reason. Well, I think that's a bit unfair. I think the reason is Susie Bates turned up. And that's the problem. Once you've got 4 bona fide overseas stars and you can only play 3 of them, who do you drop? And I guess, I don't know, the question there is there over fitness? I mean, Van Niekerk's struggled with injury recently, just coming back in. And obviously, Susie Bates has given a real sort of impetus to that Oval Invincible side at the top of the order. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the final again this year, Brave Invincibles.
Yeah, and there was a really interesting article on cricketqueens.com who feature a number of great writers on the women's game, including, I think, Palami, who we've had on the channel, has contributed it. And on the topic of how the 4 overseas players was influencing the women's game in particular, clearly, and how Deepti Sharma was being used in a situational sense over Birmingham Phoenix, and Molly Strano was getting perhaps more games than expected, just because they're able now to move the team around to suit the any given day. And Dana Venica, has missed a bit of cricket recently, and you've got obviously captain and superb talent in Susie Bates. So plenty to go with the women's. Any other sort of notable headlines on what you've seen from them?
Well, it looks a little ring rusty. Some of the games that I've watched, and a few players who you wouldn't necessarily expect it. So I'm going to single out 2 games in particular. So one was yesterday, the Welsh Fire against Manchester Originals. I think the Originals posted 150 off the back of a sterling effort from Deandra Dottin. And then the Fire, it was essentially Hayley Matthews and Tammy Beaumont. Good partnership, but really just not going quite quickly enough. And they found themselves needing, like a 50 off the last 30. They had 10 wickets in hand. Ultimately, they felt they fell short by whatever it was, 10 runs. Beaumont batted the entire innings for 45 or 41 balls. Yeah. And then today you had Nat Siver for the Rockets. Again, a bit higher. I think she's got 59 off 47. But out of a total of only 112. And poor old Catherine Bryce comes in with 1 ball at the end. A fine batter. Not really getting much time at the crease for the Rockets, because it's this issue of 2 very experienced England players, but both in those situations just seem to be going a little too slow for me and not willing to take the risks. In some ways, not willing to sort of pass on the responsibility to other players in the team who are coming in after them.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think I saw it live at the Emirates Old Trafford on Saturday with just some of the running, things like that. There were so many occasions where I would like to see hard running, putting fielders under pressure, and it felt a bit safe. And therefore, I think the batting outfits probably left runs on the pitch. But in the same game, clearly, we had some fantastic stuff, including the Sarah Glenn catch, which I was side on to, and it just looked amazing. And the Alana King hat-trick, which, as Shari Mandri says, was an absolute highlight, probably of the tournament so far on the women's side at least. A brilliant bit of bowling.
Tell us about that, because you obviously saw that live. So what was it like in the stadium to see that?
Well, firstly, with 100, I think there is a difference when you're in the ground. And one of the most important things is there's a home team atmosphere. So obviously I was in the Manchester crowd in that sense, and they were at that point rooting for the team, but they really had the stuffing knocked out of them by a brilliant bit of bowling. In the end, after the 3rd wicket, they just had to stand up and acknowledge it. I think it was 2 bowled, 1 LBW, so none of these long smacks out to be caught on the boundary.
There's T20 hat-tricks. Yeah, there's T20 hat-tricks and there's T20 hat-tricks. And like you said, sometimes it's towards the back end of the innings, and it's caught long on, caught long off. Yeah. But this was 2 bowls and an LBW, and none of the batters were anywhere near any of them, were they? And then of course he follows it up with the first tenor maiden to today. Yeah, brilliant. Although I was having a sort of quick chat with somebody on Twitter about this earlier, that I thought that it was a little bit of a fascinating battle, because Marisan Kapp saw the situation of the game. Yeah. And the Oval Invincibles were well ahead. And I think Kapp decided she was trying to score, don't get me wrong. She wasn't just sort of blocking it back down the wicket. But at the same time, she wasn't really willing to take a risk against King. I think she knew that if she just played King out, that they would be odds on to win. And that's, of course, how it played out in the end. She finished 30-odd not out. So I thought it's a bit of experience there from Marisan Kapp, not letting the moment get ahead of her, thinking it through, winning the game for her side.
Maybe a little bit of unnecessary drama, but another fantastic element of that game, of course, was actually Alice Capsey tipping the ball onto the stumps of Catherine Brunt, and she was absolutely fuming. Alice Capsey, perhaps another story of the summer, was a story of last summer as well. How is she batting? Well, I think she's got 50 odd runs across the couple of innings so far, so not yet on the top table, but she looks every inch the star that she is.
It's more than, and let me talk a little bit about her innings today, because she's, and contrast it with what I was saying earlier about some of the more established England players. So she makes 24 today off only 17, and but she's willing to go aerial early. She's taking chances in order to hit boundaries because she knows that in the back end of the innings, the Trent Rockets have Alana King 20 balls. They have Sarah Glenn for 20 balls. So she knows that they need to get ahead of the rate, make sure that it's less than a run a ball.
Yeah.
And if she gets out, then she leaves her teammates in a good position because she's gone fast. And if she gets out early, she's left them plenty of balls in order to do it. So she goes hard. She hits several boundaries, hits a lovely 6 straight down the ground. Gets out, going for big shots early. But fantastic knock for the team. Not necessarily going to be the individual stats. She probably could have knocked it around and got herself a 45 ball 50 today. But went hard, did her job for the team. So very impressive from my perspective. And and bowling well too.
Yeah. In the Oval Invincibles chase against the Trent Rockets, they're hitting desperation stakes now, I'd say, with Narayan and Cox at the crease. 72 runs required, 22 balls. The no ball and free hit that's coming up, you've probably seen, right?
Well, they're hitting desperation stakes, but they're hitting desperation stakes pretty hard at the minute. So balls flying around all over the place. Where I am, it's 66 off 21. So it's unlikely, but just about doable. And that one landed on the top of the commentary box.
Horrible drop from
the commentary
Shamsi as well a minute.
I should say, what have you made of the commentary so far, Tom, of the tournament? You must have been following a fair bit of it on the BBC and Sky.
Yeah, I mean, there's a question in a minute that we'll put up, but for me, I quite often listen without any commentary at all. One, because my long-suffering wife doesn't need me to be disturbing her as well as myself. Quite often I listen to it on the radio. I quite like that. So generally, I think Kevin Peterson is Marmite, to use the English phrase. You either love him or you hate him, and I find him a bit too much. I quite like a bit of Owen Morgan. I like some Dan Norcross on the radio. Henry Moran is fine on the radio. So mixed bag. And from the women's side, some really good stuff from Mel Jones as always, and from Alex Hartley is always good.
Yeah, I'm with you actually. I think the BBC commentary on the radio has been very good, and I think I would sort of rank that number one. The Sky sort of there's there's the usual gang. Some are better than others. BBC TV, I think and I think Sky are a little bit guilty of this as well. In that, I think Test Match Special know that nobody's discovering cricket by listening to Test Match Special, right? No. So they have their audience, and they're either with them or they're not. I think both Sky and the BBC are trying desperately hard to fulfil this remit of being welcoming, getting people new to cricket.
Yeah,
but it is a bit overly positive at times, and there's been moments when I think that the cricket has been poor, or players have done something wrong, or the game's been a bit one-sided, a bit boring. Yet there's been this sort of reticence to really call it out for being not a great game. Sort of really this focus on how great everything is, which I think I find a little grating after a while.
Well, absolutely. I know. I've worked with young people over the years. The last thing you need to do is insult their intelligence. But one positive example I'll leave you with as well is on the BBC TV coverage. They did a half-time segment with Chris Wokes and Mark Wood talking about how to bowl fast, and it was gold. That stuff. And if I was a young 10-year-old Tom, once again, I'd have absolutely lapped that stuff up. That was really good. Simon Dalton.
I agree. I enjoy Simon Dalton, Darren Sammy.
Yeah.
Especially Darren Sammy trying to get Andre Russell's attention after he dropped a catch. That was quite fun. That was a highlight for me.
He wasn't leaving him alone, was he? Yeah. No. A bit of Ravi Shastri, as Shai says as well. Ravi Shastri is always good.
Shastri's enjoying himself, isn't he? He's enjoying himself.
I'm missing a bit of Dinesh Karthik, who we saw last year. Not least his lovely suits as well.
Yeah, missing a bit of DK. Hopefully he can be back next year.
Yeah, a bit of a more serious question on the media sort of coverage. TV viewers this year. I mean, there's been some interesting numbers flying around. Viewership, I think, is down. I think it's down maybe even as far as 50% on the BBC numbers that they're saying, which is, on the face of it, quite concerning. But I think there's probably a little bit where it's that novelty factor has maybe taken a little shine. I'm going to point back to a Matt Roller article on ESPN Cricket Info, which he came out a couple of days ago, which I think is much more interesting, actually, than just sort of TV viewership, which is, what's going on with attendances as well. So we know that the tournament is outsold last year in terms of ticket sales, but also just taking Edgbaston as a test bed of how it's doing in terms of ticket sales, which is important. In 2019, the Blast, before COVID, before restrictions on when the Blast sits in the schedule, and all those arguments, was averaging around 9,500 ticket sales per game over the season. For Monday's match at Edgbaston on a weekday afternoon, Monday afternoon, for women's game, they got 9,800 in through the gate. That evening, they got 15,500 in for the evening session of the men's version of the 100. But even more interestingly than that, they also had their Blast tickets up 1,000 per game this year, not least because they packaged in Blast and 100 games into a sort of a season ticket factor.
Season ticket. Yeah, I saw that.
Exactly. So if you like the 100, you probably like the Blast. You don't have to watch both. But what it's doing to me is, if you see that happening, then it's suggesting that new audience, that partisan home crowd, which I've seen, which we've really seen at Edgbaston as well as some of the other grounds, is actually getting into cricket, which is the encouraging sign for me.
Yeah, I think I saw that article too, and it was interesting. The point he was making was that games in London will sell out no matter what, just because there's the demand for it. Whereas it's sort of in these regional centres that the interest is really there, particularly where you have places like Manchester, Birmingham. Whereas if you grow up in Manchester, central, you don't necessarily think of yourself as, we don't really associate with Lancashire as strongly, or potentially so. So the idea is that the city-based franchise was supposedly going to bring in a different audience, particularly amongst sort of the South Asian diaspora, who are obviously cricket mad. We saw that in the World Cup, but don't necessarily come in great numbers to domestic cricket. This is one of the things they sort of challenge. And I think by seeing players like Moeen and Abdullah Maqsood, you're turning out on Izzy Wong as well for the Phoenix, they're sort of seeing local people who sound like them, look like them, and representing their city. And I think that's a positive. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. We'll see how it goes, and we don't want to be that sort of overly positive thing as well. I think they need to do some more, not least the Oval Invincibles need to get on with it now. They need 54 runs from 13 balls remaining. It's looking pretty dire. Sunil Narine really hasn't been able to get anything off the square for a bit.
But I think they're being relatively smart here in terms of guarding their net run rate. I think they've accepted. No, I think they've accepted that they're not going to necessarily win the game, but they're trying to get up as close as they can. So, a bit of savvy cricket here from the Invincibles.
Okay, well, if you're watching along at home, then we'll keep you up to track with that. There's another 10 balls or so. And, if you want to ask any questions about the 100 this year, your thoughts about who's done well in your mind, then do stick it in the comments down below. Hit the subscribe and like. That's always welcome as well. We are the 100 Club, and we like talking about this stuff. And we want to know what you think so far. So let's have a look for another comment then. Is an interesting one. So I thought about this, and I mentioned it into a message the other day as well. Boundary lines being too short, therefore not seeing enough 2s and 3s. I think that's particularly affecting the women's game, but could the same be said for the men's?
I was wondering that the other day, actually. I think cricket's a more interesting game when it's in that element of both boundary hitting, but also sort of hard running placement, etc.
Yeah.
And do they move them into? I don't know how they decide, to be honest with you. If there's a central committee, it has been talked about more in the context of the women's game, particularly.
Yeah.
And I think in the last few games, they have started to push them back a little bit further as well in response to that criticism.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. I'd like to see, given that people are putting the ball into the stands at regular basis, for the men's game, put them as far back as possible, because I think it makes for a more interesting contest. Yeah. And just as sort of a bit of a purist, I don't like to see mishits going for 6. I think if it comes off the edge and spoons up in the air, then give them a chance to catch it.
And it's not like British grounds generally are the biggest in the world anyway. So come on, let's give ourselves a full pitch to play with. That I'm down with that. Okay, let's have a look at a few of the women's stats, shall we? Because we haven't done that yet. So batting wise, top of the line is Beth Mooney over at the London Spirit, doing some pretty good things. Yeah,
nearly got 100, didn't she? The first 100 of the women's competition in that game against the Southern Brave, where I think nobody else got higher than 12. Just fantastic player. Looks absolute class. And I think if she can maintain that level of form, then I think the Spirit have a chance of getting themselves into contention.
Yeah, and the next two are Oval Invincibles. Perhaps the most interesting case is, well, we've talked a bit about Susie Bates already, but Lauren Winfield-Hill, who obviously moved across from the Northern Superchargers deliberately from last season with a particular aim of taking the wicket-keeping gloves, but not doing a bad job with that bat either.
Yeah, point to prove. She had a good innings against the Superchargers, didn't she?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure it pleased so greatly.
Grudge match. I love it.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. And there's plenty more to come there. Natsieva put in a good innings there. She's already up to 90. We'll see how that one goes. On the bowling side,
we talked about it a little bit earlier. I mean, there's a few people there who've got runs, but have they got them quick enough?
Yeah, and we'll see how that goes. Similarly, on the bowling side, any standout performance? We've already spoken about Alana King, of course, with 3 of those wickets coming in, 3 balls. Who else is impressed?
Well, let's touch on Rihanna McDonald-Gay and Sophia Smalley.
I want to talk about Smalley, yeah.
Yeah, go on, because she's been impressive, a newcomer, only a sort of late injury replacement, but she's come straight into the team and impressed.
Yeah, really, really bright bowling, really tight bowling as well. So economy bringing wickets, I think, but important wickets as well. And, for someone who probably didn't expect to play a lot, is having a bit of a breakthrough as a young player. Again, this is what you'll have to see it. As a 6 goes into the crowd there from Jordan Cox, that brings up his 50 in the Oval Invincibles game, but looking far too late, 7 balls left. Sophia Smile doing good things.
Indeed. And Deandra Dottin is bowling again this year, and she backed up that impressive performance with the bat with I think 2 wickets with the ball the other day. And it's as Cox hits one for 6, it's still on 29 off 5. It's still
if they pull this
technically on.
Okay, so you're 1 ball ahead of me now. Let's keep this going.
Yeah.
What I will say though, from that bowling, just on pure wickets, we haven't got a lot of Southern Brave names on there apart from Amanda Jade Wellington. So we did always think that they were stronger in the in the batting lineup than the bowling. They might need to do a little bit more there if they are really to be the title contenders that we think. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. But early days, 2 games in, and they're 2 from 2. So and the batting lineup looks so good, doesn't it?
It does. It looks like they can chase anything.
Take a day off because the bowling lineup, they weren't particularly impressive against the Spirit, like you said, when Mooney hit that 98. But they what I thought was going to be a challenge in total, they really got with ease.
So easy. All right. Do we want to make me miserable for the last few balls? How about this one? Welsh Fire. Do we want to talk about them having a horror show all over the shops?
What's gone wrong? What's gone wrong at the Welsh Fire?
What's gone wrong? Well, I think if I was in that dressing room, and there's a really interesting piece on the BBC website about getting into that dressing room and seeing how they are. And I think it was done after the first game where they just lost quite badly. And went on to lose again the second match. I think I would sense all of the stuffing being knocked out of me by the Johnny Bairstow decision to pull out on the eve of the tournament. For a team that hadn't done very well last year, but when he was in the team, they were a markedly better team. I just think, they will be absolutely lacking confidence. It's not that I think that they got the draft wrong necessarily. I think we liked them on paper, but I just think they're utterly lacking in confidence. And we're seeing that both for the men and the women in some of their performances, just absolutely petering out, even of games which they should win, say the World Fire against the Birmingham Phoenix men.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm just going to agree with that one.
No, I agree. I just think they look, even without Bairstow, they look a bowler short to me as well. I mean, they had Case Ahmed last time. They look like they're sort of missing. But I mean, at the same, Adam Zampa's come in and has been sort of the ray of light. So I'm not exactly sure where it is missing, but just. Well,
they lost Naseem Shah as well to Pakistan
but
tour.
It's just not clicked. It's just not clicked at the minute, and obviously back to the drawing board for next year. This game's over. The Invincibles have succumbed. I say that they need 28 off 2 balls.
I've just seen Narayan's sky one into the atmosphere.
Indeed.
With Luke Wood taking one with snow on it as it comes down.
Indeed, Luke Wood is prone to the odd wide, but I think even he will probably manage to close out with 2 balls left.
Another experienced campaigner who's having a good tournament.
Indeed, and he'd be behind Sam Curran and Reece Topley in the pecking order, but they talked about him in the pre-match today. Dominic Cork was quite keen on him. In terms of England squads, and I think he has been called up once or twice before. Not sure if he's played in the full, but made his debut yet. But no, he could be in and about the white ball squad.
We'll see how it goes. Okay, let's close the stream off with perhaps the number one topic on, well, I say that there's always a variety of divisive topics on the lips of cricket fans in England, but Jos Buttler, white ball captain, where's it going?
I don't think so. I don't think the captaincy pressure is getting to him. I think he's just
okay. I was wondering where you're going to go there. You left
no,
it. Could have gone either way with that.
I don't think he is. I think the Originals have had they had a good win the other night, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think he was so good earlier in the year. You just can't keep that level of form up. Was going to 100 every week, especially in 2020, especially the way he plays. So I think for me, it's just a bit of regression to the mean. I think he'll come good again. It's not as if he hasn't been getting any runs at all. I mean, he's been getting 30s and 40s here and there. He's useful knocks. And obviously, he's sort of handed over the gloves to Phil Salt so he can field in the outfield and do that. But no, I think we'll see at least one blockbuster innings from Buttler before the tournament's done.
Yeah, and for me, it's almost further than that. I think that 100 is doing him some favours because he wasn't scoring anything in the white ball summer. Taking up the mantle with England and the like, and actually he has done a little bit now over a couple of innings for the Manchester Originals. He's, as you say, not having to keep, but he is, leading a team that I think will improve in the second half of this tournament. Some of the Australians drop out of the other teams. We might see, Andre Russell drop out of the Manchester Originals, but he's not really been firing. He's not been central to where they are. They've already suffered the blow of Hasaranga, but they've got, some of their spinners. Hartley's doing all right. I think he's going to see a little bit of growth.
Stubbs looks like a find.
Tristan Stubbs, 22 years old, a couple of days ago. Yeah, doing all right, all-rounder. I think Jos Buttler is going to start finding his feet a bit more, and that's what we want. We wanted to build towards the World Cup. So I'm confident that he's going to be just about there or thereabouts for the World Cup.
Yeah, where he'll be opening the batting with Alex Hales.
Well, you think Alex Hales? I was going to say, we said Phil Salt earlier. There's another point we didn't make there, which is that he's opening with Phil Salt right now. There's something to be said.
I think Phil Salt
with your partner.
I think Phil Salt is the next cab off the rank. I think Hales has had his time with England.
Yeah,
but I think talent-wise, there's no reason why he can't get back in. But I just think he's burned one bridge too many with England management.
Yep. Well, they've done the job tonight, though, the Trent Rockets, featuring Alex Hales. They have won that game at Trent Bridge. The home crowd will be delighted, and they are coming off the pitch now. Sunil Narayan and the Oval Invincibles couldn't chase down what was, I think, a very strong total of 181, was it?
Yeah,
and they look good.
Yeah, and that puts them back into second place. Puts them above the Oval.
Let's see if they've updated. No, not yet on my.
No, but I can. I've got it in front of me there. Yeah, they'll go second, and Oval will drop down actually due to net run rate below Phoenix, so they'll slip out the eliminator.
All to play for. Okay, Rich, that was a fun 45 minutes or so. If you enjoyed that, and if you're watching back on replay, thank you for joining us for that period. Thank you for the questions in the comments. Really fun. We'd love to do this again. Let us know what you'd like us to do. We're always open to comments on that. If you want to see more stuff, make sure you hit the subscribe button. That's always appreciated. We just hit 300 subscribers, Rich.
Fantastic.
Not bad for a little hobby.
Graham Gooch territory.
Yeah, let's go for Brian Lara next, shall we? Or Sam Northeast. Keep it topical. Okay, that was great fun. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll catch you next time here on the 100 Club.
Bye.